Hello, friends and listeners. We are proud to present today's guest, Miss Samantha Dahlby. She has been working at the New Bohemian Innovation Collaborative or NewBoCo for almost 5 years, working as the Director of K12 Education for the last two and a half. NewBoCo is a nonprofit that, among a wide range of things, aims to foster technical talent through educational programs for both adults and children in K 12. Samantha has started her career as a software engineer working at embedded Bluetooth systems, and then she has switched to New Bohemian Innovation Collaborative to increase the equity in computer science education. Samantha, welcome. We are so excited to have you on our show. Let's talk computer science.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
So, tell us more about your work. How did you get to where you are today?
Yes, I don't think I ever planned it, as most people don't necessarily know where they're going to end up. But in my K-12 experience, I never had computer science exposure or anything beyond like keyboarding or how to use a computer. But I did have math and science teachers that encouraged me to look into engineering when I was planning my college career. And so I went and did a summer, like a couple of summer days visit at Iowa State University when I was a junior. And they gave us tours of all of the different engineering labs so that we could see what they were like and what they might be doing if we chose those programs. And the one that really excited me the most was computer engineering. They had little Rug Warrior Pro robots, and we spent about 3 hours programming them in a version of C, and just trying to make them go straight or go through a maze and things like that. So I thought that was really, really cool. I hadn't done that before. I thought it was really neat that I could type some things into a computer and something external to myself would follow those instructions. And so I decided to go into computer engineering, not really knowing much more than that about it, and graduated with a computer engineering degree, and then started my professional career as a software engineer in Iowa, working on rugged mobile handheld devices. So like if you've ever signed for a package from FedEx, those kind of devices. And specifically, I worked on short range wireless technologies, initially Bluetooth, and then we did a little bit of R&D or research and design on near field communications. So I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a lot of fun. I liked the mix of fixing bugs, making products work for our clients, and then also getting to do some research. While I was a software engineer, I was asked to do some outreach to students, in particular, because I was one of the rare women in the field and in our company, in the engineering department at least. So I was happy to oblige. I had done a little bit of outreach as a college student with local students. And I thought, oh, sure, no problem. I'll go talk to middle schoolers, and was kind of shocked the first time about how hard it was to engage with students, just because of the language barrier on the technical aspect, which they hadn't. It was hard for me to talk about what I was doing in ways that meant something to them, because I hadn't thought about it in a way for young students. So that was not like a great success my first time. I think it was probably a pretty big failure. But I persisted like other things and really enjoyed trying to spread the word about the excitement, because I saw the field had so many opportunities that I didn't even understand going into it initially. And so I did more outreach. And then eventually, as I had my own children, I started looking at what opportunities were in schools, because I didn't have previous experience before college, and I really wanted students to have that opportunity now. And I found that at least in Iowa, not a lot had changed. There were still some larger districts, or few of the smaller ones maybe, that had something related to computer science in high school, but not much, if anything, happening in elementary or middle school. And then most of our schools still didn't have something at the high school level. So that's where I became very passionate and started volunteering more, and then eventually switched career paths and we started working at the nonprofit that I'm at now. And we work with students directly through programs, but then really to have a bigger impact in the state, we started doing teacher professional development and supporting teachers so that they could bring access to their students during the school day, which is one of those equity components. After school programs, summer camps are all wonderful supplementary programs, but we really wanted it to be during the school day. So that's kind of how I ended up going from industry into the nonprofit world and working with education, not a path that I expected to be on.
Yeah, so you made a very interesting point. I mean, it relates very closely to me and our business model, on why like it's important to teach computer science during school day. After school summer camp is good, but why? What made you say that?
Yeah, so I think there have been many studies and just in our own experience, not all students can get to school before school or stay after school. They may have family responsibilities, they may have jobs that they need to go to and work at. And so by having opportunities within the school day, where students should be during the day, they have those opportunities to try them out. And then if they try them out in a class and they find that they really like it, then it's great to be able to have the opportunity to maybe spend more time in a First Lego League or Girls Who Code Club, to get additional support and build that community around it as well. But we really see the school day as an opportunity for all students to have access. And then they can choose if they enjoy it or what aspects they enjoy about computer science, because there are many different roles that they could play, whether it's coding and programming, or it might even be like a project management role, and having an understanding of computer science is very helpful in those skills as well. It's also important in that to have early access. If we're waiting until high school where students are choosing their courses and they have to deal with schedule and timing, that's too late because they don't know what computer science is. So how would they know if they want to take a course and sign up for a semester or a whole year course? So really having exposure early on in elementary and middle school where all students are encouraged and engaged in computer science gives them a background and understanding of what they might want to do the high school level and beyond.
Yep. So that makes total sense. Can you please talk about like the different trends that are happening in K12 CS education and mainly related to Iowa? And are there any major changes or improvements? Yes.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So we've seen a big change. I started this work in 2016. And at that time, I mentioned, I think to the best of our knowledge, there were maybe 40% of schools that had something related to computer science. And I'm not sure how modern it was. It might have still been basic or something like that.
Keyboard or PowerPoint,
Yeah,
Excel.
exactly. And we kind of saw like what sometimes we call like prairie dogging, where there's like one teacher in a school that took a class, or they do it on the side and they really are engaged and enjoy it, and so they offer it to their students, but it's not offered in all classrooms like in the elementary school level, or it's kind of like this side project that happens. So that's what we were seeing initially when I started. And now, especially in Iowa, with a focus on implementing computer science in every single school in Iowa, we're starting to see more structured and specific plans around computer science. So in Iowa, actually last summer, legislation was passed that will start to require all schools in Iowa to incorporate computer science. So the first round is going to be starting next summer, July 1st of 2022. All districts have to, and private schools have to submit a K-12 plan for computer science. So they have to say what they're planning to do. And then all high schools are going to be required to offer at least one semester of a foundational computer science course. And then the following year, so July 1st, 2023, all grades, or all schools grades 1 through 6, and then grades 7 and 8 are going to need to incorporate computer science standards in at least one grade across the building. So that's where we're starting to see like this systems change and requiring it. So in an elementary school building, not every grade has to have it, but we are seeing buildings planning to have multiple grades. But they could say, okay, all of the third grade teachers are going to, teach computer science so that all students get this in third grade instead of just one first grade teacher, one third grade teacher, and maybe, two fifth grade teachers doing that. And you have to get lucky getting those teachers to have the access to computer science. So that alone is a huge, huge change from just individual to grassroots impact from teachers, which is a great start. But now we're seeing buildings and whole districts making plans to incorporate computer science, and because of that, training teachers so that they have a background and a foundation to build from. So those are some of the big changes. Along with that, we're starting to kind of look down the road and see where things are going so that we continue to support teachers. And beyond just the foundational computer science, what are some of the content areas specific? So maybe students in certain high schools are interested in game development. So after their introductory computer science course in high school and having built on it in elementary and middle school, maybe there's a game development class offered, or something in artificial intelligence or cybersecurity. So helping districts think about what their long-term plans are and building that pathway from elementary to middle to an introductory high school course, and then beyond into content or language specific areas.
Yep. Yeah, that is so cool. How did this happen? And I know there's a long way to go to make this a reality, but this is a huge step.
Yes, definitely. It's very exciting in the state. And I think that our governor and our legislators have done a nice job of setting a reasonable baseline for schools to implement while still making large steps in the right direction. So they can certainly do more. And we are seeing districts planning for more than just that minimum requirement. But it's still a lot of work to get there. There are lots of barriers. It doesn't just magically go away. There's still a lot of work to be done, and will continue to be work to be done in that area. But it's great to have that support.
Yes, definitely. What do you see, like how you are going to contribute to this change, impact? I mean, whatever you do, I'm sure like you'll impact thousands and thousands of people's lives.
Yes. Yeah, it's great. That's one of the things I really love about this job, is that every year we, through training and through just education and advocacy, we see more and more teachers and educators brought into understanding more about computer science education, and more teachers trained, and then more students impacted. And, training a teacher is going to be years and years worth of students having access to that. So it's a great way to see that number continuing to go up as we're charting our progress.
So, can you talk to me about like the different paths for a teacher to be able to teach computer science in the state of Iowa?
Sure. So right now in Iowa, there's no requirement beyond just having a teaching license to be able to teach computer science at any level. We do
Okay.
have a computer science endorsement, mainly targeted at secondary teachers, but right now it's optional. One of the things we're working on encouraging the state is to set kind of a deadline, and even if it's 10 years in the future, we'd like to have a goal for when teachers are going to be required to have that, so that we can get more and more teachers to have that in-depth knowledge through the endorsement program. But as of right now, it's anyone with a teaching license. And that could be someone that's gone through a teaching program, been an in-classroom teacher in a different content area, and then now is adding computer science. It could be, an elementary school teacher that's teaching everything, and then they're integrating computer science. Or it could be someone from industry that has a background in software development or something, that is really passionate about this, and they can go back and they can get their teaching license and then also go into the classroom. So there are a couple of different ways to get there, but right now it's pretty open.
Yeah, that's a good start. I mean, it's always important for a teacher to be able to be a good teacher than the subject matter expert.
Yeah.
So, what do you mean by endorsement? Can you talk a little bit more about it? I know it's not a requirement right now, but
Yes, so there's a 5-course pathway for teachers to receive their computer science endorsement. One of them is a computer science methods course, so how to teach computer science. And then the 4 other ones are different content areas. So like learning a programming language, data structures, networking, things like that, that takes teachers deeper into a concept or an area of computer science so that they have that deeper knowledge when students ask them questions. And they also just have that, deeper background to be a more effective teacher.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I know there is this law that's gonna make many school or all the schools make offer computer science. Can you talk to me on your thoughts on how should schools increase the computer science education?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are so many different ways because each school and district, like I said, has their own barriers and challenges. And so, one of the ways that we are working in Iowa is by engaging a lot of different stakeholders to be there for support for districts and individual teachers. So, in Iowa, we have service agencies for districts. Different regions are 9 regions. They're called AEAs, or Area Education Agencies. And we've been working closely with them and our Department of Education computer science consultant, as well as other groups throughout the state, to make sure that we're communicating the requirements, clarifying them, and then providing support for those districts. One of the things that we started last year before the pandemic started was training at least one person in all of those regions on the script workshop from CS for All. So that's a system change model to help districts think about their computer science implementation, what's already happening in their district, and what they can do to get to that next level. So that was really fortunate, especially with this legislation that came out requiring everyone to have a K-12 plan. So those that can go through the script workshop with their AEA representatives or others, they can really come out of that with that plan in hand. And that gives them a good blueprint to work from. So that's one way that we encourage that. And then it's looking and assessing what their needs are. A lot of times we talk about, identify your ideal implementation and then figure out from the many opportunities out there, whether it's curriculum or training or all of those things, what is going to serve your needs, and start looking for professional development opportunities for the teachers. In elementary, sometimes that's having the whole building or whole district of elementary school teachers trained together so that they're all going through it at the same time. Sometimes districts will have a computer science cohort of teachers that will pilot something, and then they'll take on a leadership role for their certain grades. And then really it's getting buy-in from the teachers at middle school and high school levels to be able to have at least one teacher there to implement a course. That's just the getting started, right? So that's how we can get it started, but then how do we sustain it? We need to have that continuing professional development, continuing support. Maybe they've started off with a curriculum that's free to try that out first, and they identify the gaps or other needs that their school or students have, and then they can actually have something specific to look for in the next resource or supplementing that. So it's really, we talk about a journey. It's not one silver bullet, you do this thing and you're done and you're set for the next 10 years. Especially with computer science, it's constantly changing and evolving.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good blueprint that schools could follow. So, what kind of resources are out there to teach computer science for K-12 schools?
Yes, I think we've also seen an explosion of options that have come to the market, because I'm constantly getting asked by teachers and administrators and AEA consultants, have you heard of this? Have you heard of this? And there are more and more of them that are new and that I haven't heard of yet. So we kind of look into that. I would say that there's everything from open-ended individual lesson plans, everything from unplugged, where students are not at the computer necessarily, or they're doing something away from the computer, to plugged, more programming specific, just individual lessons that teachers can maybe fit into something that they're already doing, or they can pull together their own kind of curriculum, to full curricula that teachers can follow step by step with all the lesson plans created for them in a certain sequence and pattern. We have everything from teacher taught lesson plans where there's a teacher in front of the classroom or leading the class, to self-paced options for students to go through with maybe guidance from someone in the room or otherwise. We also see some districts working with local community colleges. And so they'll have like a concurrent enrollment option for students to take coursework there. And yeah, so there's lots of different opportunities. And usually I say for people to start with any one of them that seems appealing and fits their needs. And they're probably going to make some modifications based on their specific situation, either what works for the teacher, what works for their students, what works for their schedule, the resources that are available. So it's starting off with some foundation that works for you and then supplementing or modifying from there.
So what do you think are some ideal solutions for resources that are needed to help improve or increase our computer science education?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of the introductory and foundational opportunities for teachers and students. And so what I'm concerned about and looking for is how do we go into that ongoing training for teachers to increase their knowledge, whether it's a certain concept or content in computer science, or its effective teaching strategies, or things like on equity, inclusion, diversity. And we aren't seeing a lot of that yet. So we're trying to work on things that are more specific, that's not tied necessarily to a curriculum. Some of the great resources that have been coming out in the past couple of years from the Computer Science Teachers Association, CSTA, they have some great guidance on teacher standards. And so we're taking a look at those standards and trying to find professional development in those different categories to help teachers further their knowledge and their confidence in computer science. And then on the administrative end, looking at those administrator resources so that administrators also understand the kind of support that they need to provide. And also making sure that teachers are connected to each other. We constantly hear that there may be one computer science teacher in a whole district and they're kind of an island by themselves. And so making sure that they have a community to reach out to, find out what a neighboring district is doing, how other teachers are supporting their students, maybe classes that other high schools have added to create more of a pathway. Those are all great ways that teachers can find resources, and then also things that I would like to see, whether it's through a curriculum provider and it's something more specific to their curriculum, or it's general as well.
Makes sense. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
I will just say that I maybe some of your other speakers have also brought this up, but it's really computer science. I think used to have the stigma of you have to be nerdy and antisocial and a certain stereotype. But we see success with all backgrounds of teachers and students. And one of the things that I talk about with both of those audiences is even if you don't go into becoming a computer programmer as a career, having a background and foundational understanding with computer science is extremely important in this day and age. Another part of our nonprofit works with startups and existing corporations on how to be innovative. And we're constantly seeing the need for people in non-technical roles to be able to communicate and understand technical concepts at a high level. So even if they're in the area of marketing, companies are looking for digital marketing developers. So having a little bit of background and being able to use social media and website tools to be able to create that from a marketing perspective. Or if we're in sales, if someone's in sales, having that understanding and being able to communicate the needs of clients with the technical people, and then vice versa, being able to communicate the technical information to the clients. Or if someone's an entrepreneur and wanting to create something, it's great to have the idea, but oftentimes it involves technology to create that, and having what your vision is with someone that's going to implement it is hugely important. So from my own experience, decades ago as a software engineer, working with people that didn't always understand what we were doing or what was possible, to even those problems still happening today, it's really important for everyone to have at least a little bit of a background in that, no matter what they're interested in doing.
Yep. Totally agree with you. Like these days, even if someone wants to become a car mechanic, right? Like it's Teslas and other cars, it's all very tech oriented. So they cannot.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time, Samantha. I really appreciate you joining us and telling us about the state of Iowa and how you guys are making huge progress in equity in computer science education. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.